There we go. All right. Welcome. Good morning. It's Monday, April 28th, and we are back with another The Dev Talk Show. Let's see. That actually worked out pretty well. Thank you behind the scenes, Chris. I knew you did something there. Cool. Welcome, everyone. My name's Rich, and we're here. As always, I'm joined by my colleague here, co-partner Chris.
How everybody.
This morning?
Pretty good. It's Monday.
Yeah.
so you know,
we're still pounding the coffee and rubbing sleep out of our eyes, but we got some good stuff planned, so this will be a fun one. Trying to think if there's anything happening this week. It's kind of a quiet week. No conferences or news or anything like that. Just a normal week as it is here out in the East Coast. But anything interesting happening in your world, Chris?
A couple quiet weekends, which has been good. Got a chance to look into some of the issues we've had with this app. Just things that I think when we were live, it was, let's take a look at this later. And so today, I think some of the things we'll focus on might feel a little like housekeeping. And we'll see if we run into an issue or two that I had. I kind of, in a way, I hope we do, but I also hope that what I've been doing to work around it works, because it could save people a lot of time. Cool. And if it doesn't, then it could be a really short show. So, we'll see. So, yeah,
we always have that direction this may go into. And if it's your first time watching us here, welcome. We've been working on an app to basically collect or schedule meetings for things like user groups or other kind of community events, and then have a place for people to kind of see those events and register for them. So we're still in the early stages of it, but we're using all the cool tools of .NET Aspire and Blazor, and actually Blazor WebAssembly. So really trying out some different things here. And if you're interested in kind of catching up on what we've been doing, there's a YouTube channel out there that you can go check out all the other previous videos that we've done. We've probably been doing this for the last couple of weeks, pretty steadily, something we've been trying to work on as we get into some time in our schedules to really focus on an app like this. So glad you can join us, and I guess we can probably dive into some of the things that you want to kind of talk through. I know you kind of shared where you were thinking of going, but
yeah. Let me get a screen share going here.
Yeah, there we go.
And this is just Visual Studio. I'm going to try to bring some other things up here. So bear with me for a second while I do that. But if you're wondering what code is running right now, I am currently bring up GitHub here. I'm currently at the main branch, where if you look at the code history, basically this was a commit that I think represents where the code was after the last show. And so it's E908. We can see over here, it's E908.
There's a commit.
And so if I go out to Git and I just say git status, I was hoping it would be a little bit more. Than that, but that's fine. So here I am at E908, and so if you're like me, which I think maybe a lot of people aren't, is sure you can. Oh, well, that's not the one I wanted. It's Shift, isn't it, to do this one? Nope. It's Alt, isn't it, to do this one? Nope. I was trying to get the arrow.
Shift and Control.
There it is.
Yeah, and if you Control Z, you can get rid of all of those. So
yeah. So
like
you could certainly look at a Git log and look at the log message, except that you can see we got a lot of log messages that look similar. So I said, well, if I want to know for sure I'm in the exact same spot, what will never fail is the commit hash. So that's all.
Yeah.
So we're there. And if I don't do anything more than run the app, I'm kind of curious to see how we're doing here. One of the things that comes up is the Aspire dashboard. That's going to come up. It's coming up off screen for me. And then it does start the Blazor WebAssembly standalone app. So it starts that. And then let's just see if I click on meetings, that's going to fire off the request first to our backend API, which is orbital.api in the solution, which will then turn around and call the Azure Cosmos DB emulator, which we have configured in Aspire. So no meetings available. Now that actually, I'm not seeing an error or anything. So that could be on the level, because what I haven't done is, here's the Aspire dashboard. And if I go to Data Explorer and open up the Explorer, so this is something that was happening to me. In fact, okay, so maybe I'm actually a little surprised that it's no meetings available, where the Data Explorer isn't connecting. I had this trouble before, and this happened to me specifically when I went to another machine and basically just brought the code up to date.
Okay.
Is I started getting this in the emulator. I wasn't seeing my container or database anymore. And but what I was seeing instead was failures here. I'm wondering though, well, let's see. If you can often spot them in the, okay, so this is what I'm talking about. You could spot them in the console. And yeah, it looks like what's happening here is the API itself is blowing up.
Probably because it can't get to the container.
Yeah, I mean, I presume that it might be what it is. So this is blowing up, but it's saying that it's trying to go to 7024. Let's see if that's. We'll go back to the dashboard, because what I was kind of wondering if this was going to happen, because if it was, then I certainly want to show how I worked around it. Yeah. Oh, so this is kind of nice that these errors are coming up here. One of the things I've noticed about using Blazor WebAssembly standalone, and I think this issue is acknowledged in the Aspire, I think it's acknowledged in the Aspire issues, is that things that happen in your WebAssembly app they're not coming through here, which I think maybe kind of makes sense, because these failures are happening client side. They're happening all the way down in the WASM in the client. So what is going to push that back to Aspire, at least today? Maybe there's a dream feature that somebody could come up with, but what's going to push that back to here?
Okay.
So,
and we do have, as you're looking through that, we do have some comments. Mitch Denny, who was with us last week, has some comments, right? You can look at the traces in the back end in the Aspire dashboard, which can kind of show through some of the calls that are happening and kind of how those calls are progressing.
And so these are the kinds of issues I was seeing as well. So just to show what I did specifically is I went to the CosmosDB portion and I went to these logs. And this was just kind of blowing up. And again, I haven't done a ton of investigation into, like, okay, let's really dig into what's going on here. Like, is this wrong? Is it just 9712 is wrong? And then let's see what it says about the API here. It's saying, so it's basically complaining about, hey, I was trying to call Cosmos. I'm sure that we can write code to help us with this, but certainly the API is complaining as well. So I don't want to spend, I do want to dig into it, because I think there's something here that maybe could be helpful.
Right.
But
there are a few more suggestions when you're.
Yeah. What ended up happening was and this was yesterday. So I tried a lot of things, including making sure that that all the ports were correct. Like, it was something going on. What it really ended up, and I hate when this is a solution, because I don't know that we learn anything from it.
Right.
But after trying a lot of things, including, is I eventually just stopped everything, shut down the app, stopped everything, deleted the containers and images, and had it rebuild that from scratch. And then to say that worked is a little odd. I found that the next time it started, it connected to Cosmos, but the lines of code and I haven't done this enough to say, look, I've got something repeatable. I think we might do it right now. Is these were not getting added in the emulator, the database and container, but then when I ran it again, then it was added in the emulator, and then everything just started working. Now, I don't like that as an answer because it means we don't really know what's wrong. And let's see, where's the, did I accidentally lose? I think I might have lost the page, and then I also don't know if I've accidentally closed down the app. I did. I closed down the app.
You did, yeah.
So that's okay. So I'm not going to sit here and say I think there could be more to it. But I spent a lot of time watching this come up, watching it go live, trying it again, and it just wouldn't connect. And I just wasn't enough of an expert at all of these things. So I finally said, okay, well, what if I blow this away? And then that still didn't solve the problem. So I said, okay, what if and not that I'm sure that the image really should have anything to do with it, because I kind of feel like something's that feels weird. So I just said, okay, I'm just going to get rid of all this stuff, including this volume, and start it again. I think it would be interesting to try and help figure out what's going on here. So now, because it's got to pull it's got to pull the image down now. So we see that's happening.
Yeah.
We see that this all makes sense. It's like, okay, let me go grab the image for the emulator. And I suppose one interesting point could be that perhaps we've already scrolled by these 2 lines of code, right, to add the database in the container. I don't know. I'd have to have set a breakpoint here, but that could make sense as to why. So the emulator start seems good. That seems pretty happy. Let's head back here. Open Data Explorer. Open here, and then I would say, oh, well, look at all this. This is all here. Everything's here. There's no items. Everything's here. So I would just say the last time is this didn't happen, and I wasn't 100% sure why. But again, it's the kind of thing where now this is twice that I've tried to do this. I've moved to another machine, which I'm not trying to say any of these things are the issues. They're the symptoms, right? I moved to a different machine. I updated the code. I ran it. Something just doesn't work. I delete all those. I delete the container. I make it repull the image, which I'm not sure, just something I did.
Yeah.
Then, and now I'm back in a state that works. Now, that is not an investigation, but I'm wondering, let's say somebody's following along with us and they pull the code down and they say, I got stuck. Well, here's kind of where I'm at, right? So we have a good question from Mitch here. Do you have something creating initial records? The answer is no, which is something we need to do. In fact, something we definitely want to talk about.
It does, as you see there in the code there, it does create the initial place where those records might go for the database and the container, and sets the container up with the partition key and all that, but no records are entered at that point.
Right. And I wasn't sure we would talk about this today, but I think it's something to get to, where the differences between what's part of orchestration, what's part of deployment and setup and infrastructure, and what is seeding, because they're different things. I was actually thinking about this, saying like, okay, so in this case, what you feel like is happening is the Aspire orchestration is setting up to use the emulator, which my understanding, which we haven't done yet, but my understanding is later, if we produce the the production bicep for this, is it will, instead of using the emulator, it will help us use the real CosmosDB. I can't wait to see that. Setting up this database and container and stuff, if you wanted to be super clever, you could do all of that in code as well. But now the question comes along is, should you? And without having put a ton of deep thought into this, I'm leaning towards no, because you wouldn't do that with a SQL server. In other words, you wouldn't have a line of code in your app that says like, oh, I can't find the SQL server, so let me just like let me just build one up from scratch, because I mean, I guess you could in today's cloud-enabled world where hardware is software. I mean,
right.
That's kind of what the cloud is hardware as software.
Yeah, and that's part of why we did this, or at least in my mind, is why we did this in the app host, as opposed to oftentimes when you make a connection to a container, use or create if not exist method to basically make sure that it's in there. So I think that's kind of how, at least when I was thinking about it here, looking about it that way.
I feel like it would strangely enough be possible for the application to take control and say, well, look, you gave me a CosmosDB connection. I'm going to double check that this database there, and which is probably a good thing. I'm going to double check that this container's there, probably a good thing. But if they're not, I'll create them. It's like, I don't know.
Right.
That's something to think about. But surely what the app could do is seed initial items. It could surely do that. So the fact that there's no items right now, we have our app, it's up. Let's go to the meeting. Now, if you've been following along, then we know that clicking on meetings should have gone out and made the request for meetings. And that should be fine. That should have been fine. I don't know if it's possible. It's possible. I was wondering if we would see just real early on here that that we made that connection. We might have. I don't know for sure. I know one way we could do it is, I mean, there's a couple ways we could do it. Like for one thing, we could just try sending a request from here. Oh, that's interesting. That's not what I expected. I don't think I have been updating this as much. So let's just say, let's just get the meetings and it comes back empty. That's fine. That's perfect. And if I want to get meeting 4, which doesn't exist right now, then perfect. That's expected. We could do some interesting things, like we could add meeting number 5, and which right now we're specifying the ID, and then we could even do something else, like say this is going to be a new meeting type. And we're going to make that number 1, and I'm not going to worry about the start times or anything. And now I've got a couple meetings in there. So this array is going to come back when we test here. And if I head back to the app, then I believe we should see, because right now the only way to activate it is to actually start the page. And here we are. We have our two meetings. So I think, it's interesting to me because I wonder if there's a way to diagnose more specifically what went wrong, figure out if there's something we could do to mitigate it, or we should be doing to mitigate it. Because like, it's the difference between figuring out, is there something we should be doing, or is it something that the folks working on the Azure Cosmos DB integration might be interested to know?
Right. And I think, there's a couple comments around this, and I think it's kind of where we were leaning, was something probably happened in the emulator that didn't start up correctly, which kind of makes sense, right? And going through and kind of cleaning all that up and bringing it back, you got a clean slate to kind of work from. So I think that's along the right trail. And I think, this is why, we didn't get the other 2 parts. Now I know if you were to go to the, not in the container part, but if you go down to like the API project, and you say you've got a with reference, well, actually where you are right here in the code, so where it says with reference Cosmos, I think you can also do a wait for.
Oh yeah,
and then have it.
Yeah,
but that's for the API to connect to the Cosmos, which is fine.
Right.
But then, what about line 16 and 17? Right, we almost need to wait for.
Well, so here's what I haven't proven. Is it waiting for something that's errored out and is not coming? Like it's just not happening? The emulator's not starting up. It's just not. So what you're waiting, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with waiting, but you can't get to a place. You can't get to a place where you're past that. So therefore, you're just stuck.
Well, and your API, yeah. I mean, I would guess if that's the case, if you said wait for and it just failed, then your API would not run either.
Yeah. it's something to be diagnosed more. And so I want to make it very clear that I'm not accusing anyone of anything at this point. It's that, hey, I got stuck here last night on another machine, and I kind of felt weird, and I couldn't figure out if I just felt like the emulator just refused to start up, or at least if it did, was it starting up in a way that was the container maybe not the port not being like, I don't know. So I finally gave up. I threw up my hands, blew everything away in the Docker side,
right,
and found it working. And I said, okay, that's not an answer, but it does keep me moving, which can be nice in some scenarios. Like, there's a problem that I'd like to figure out, but it's not, I can at least move forward to do the next thing I want to do right at the moment. That's all. And I thought it might happen here because today, one thing we did different is that we're running this on my machine today, where the last several episodes, it's been on yours. And I kind of felt like we needed to get to that spot where let's see a team trying to deal with this, because this is what happens. Your teammate goes to join your project, and what inevitably happens is inevitably you got to figure out what's different on their machine.
Right.
That always happens. And so I will actually say this was a much more welcome experience in that there was literally no setup to do. And so maybe, look, it is the preview emulator, right?
Right. Yes.
So by at least getting back to where I could work by simply saying, you know what, I'm going to just dump everything that's in the Docker in Docker on my side. I'll dump and it rebuilds and works. That is way better than the kind of troubleshooting that often happens, which is, oh, well, gosh, I don't know. I feel like there's this thing you have to do, and maybe you got to go npm install, and I don't remember. Oh, I installed this thing over here. And then when you've done throwing darts at it, which of the 10 things that you tried were actually necessary, and what is hocus pocus?
Right. And that's all the stuff we want to avoid by doing, having these things kind of set up on their own. So
so it's okay. The only reason why I brought this up, and I didn't mean to spend as much time on it as we did, is just that I could see a lot of folks saying, that looks cool. I want to bring your code down from GitHub. Oh, it doesn't work for me.
Right. And then stop, because that's not what you want to have happen.
Yeah.
Mitch has a couple good suggestions in there around looking at the health of the Cosmo checks next time around.
Yep.
And then, as you mentioned, right, it's a preview component. So there may still be some hiccups in there as well, but
so github.com/TheDevTalkShow. Here is the main, has the code we're looking at right now. One of the things that we did early on, as you may remember, is we started working on a data model that's residing here in Orbital Core. And so, we'll get to work on this a little bit more. And for now, in order to get the casing the way we would expect for both, this is kind of a hybrid between C# and let me zoom in with Control-4 so that it doesn't IntelliSense over top of it. Is there's some lowercase and uppercase here, and you probably remember when we did this that it seemed to really cause, it was like nails on a chalkboard maybe for C# developers, because we immediately got questions in the chat about it, right? So I think one of the things we can do is we can talk about the serialization options that you have with the Azure CosmosDB SDK. And I want to point out some things that you may have already gone and looked for, which is crazy because I have... Yes, here we go. I have some blog posts that when I was investigating this, I ran across this one. It's great. Custom JSON serialization with Azure Cosmos DB. And it's fantastic. And it it's basically about creating your own Cosmos JSON.NET serializer. And I actually don't even really think that this post is very old. So because he talks about, or I don't know who this is. I actually don't know the author at all, Ankit. Ankit talks about perhaps the release of the V4 SDK. The option will be out of the box, which I thought was a little strange, because then I said, well, wait a second. How come when I look at, creating a custom serializer, okay, I just thought it was weird because, and maybe I just fell into kind of this lucky, I don't know if I've actually solved the problem or not.
Okay.
But if I go to where we add the Cosmos, not Azure Cosmos DB, I want to go to where we use the SDK, which is in the meetings. We call that the why is that not here? Why shouldn't that be here?
What's
the
that?
meeting service? I feel like it should be here.
Under the APIs. No, I'm sorry. No, you're right. Under the web, there's a folder.
Oh yeah, there it is. Services. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this particular service was a service that we created and added here, right? And basically, I'm sorry, added here, and the meeting service just kind of uses it directly.
Mm-hmm.
But there is another way to do this. Unfortunately, the producer of the show is giving me a hard time this morning, and I'm not sure why. I think that there are other APIs that may or may not come into play here. So, for example, let's see. I'm looking at some things I tried last night, just so that the idea is that we aren't staring at them all day. What is this? This is the web app. This is the API here. Okay, so in the API, we use the add Azure Cosmos client, okay?
Right.
And this extension method registers a singleton that basically, I think what it's really doing is it's giving us this Cosmos client that we are using directly in a lot of these APIs right now. We'll look at that. But one of the things that I found that we could do is when we look at the IntelliSense for this. Oh, actually, I really did want this to be this one. When we look at the IntelliSense for this, see that last one, configure client options?
Mm-hmm.
That's null by default. Then there's configure settings, which we aren't using, and then the connection name, which we are using. So I got to thinking, well, what if we didn't send null into configure client options? What if we started filling them out? So what kind of options are there? And let's take a look at what kind of options there are. As you could see, that configure client options didn't take like a structure or anything. It takes an action. So this is where you can supply. One thing you can do is supply a Lambda and basically say, okay, hey, go set the client options. There is a client option for serializer options. And you can say that you want this to be a new Cosmos serialization options type. And let's use this other handy C# feature to start filling out that structure immediately. And we could do things like, say, let's ignore nulls and let's not indent. We can talk about all these options later, but the one that I think really caught my attention was this one.
Property naming policy. Okay.
So look at that. Property naming policy camel case. And then we got to close the Lambda off. Now, I did this, and then I went I went back to our meeting and changed this to ID, change this to title. There are some things that this thing is still complaining about. For example, it's saying, like, there's little things like this where it's saying, I don't think you should be able to get out of here without a title because you're not using a nullable string. I got to thinking about this. We'll have to think about this a little bit more. I was thinking, like, yeah, but it's valid to have no show title, no meeting title right now. So maybe I'll say that the default is string empty. We got to think about that. One of the things we'll probably want to do is think through, what do we want to do here in terms of initialization? When you create a meeting, do we want it to be impossible for it to be invalid? Right. And do we even want a class? Like, maybe it's an opportunity to use a record or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But don't have to solve that right now. So do I want, I didn't realize I was still debugging. So when I do that, I'm going to cause some new problems. Because I just changed and I didn't use the rename feature to help me. Is I changed some of these values that are being used in other parts of the code, like the lowercase ID and the lowercase type. So I found myself, because I did not use rename, the rename refactoring, is I found myself, I've already done this. I've already made this mistake once, so might as well do it again. Is I found myself manually coming over here and updating these.
Okay.
Now, after doing that, after doing that, so we have a nice comment here: Newtonsoft JSON versus system text JSON. So I think what you're saying, because I think this is true, is that CosmosDB emulator, I don't know if it's that it's using the JSON.net Newtonsoft JSON versus the newer built into the platform system text JSON, or that it's using one and you kind of end up manually switching to the other, or that just crossing the streams between the two is a fun exercise. Yeah. Right. So I think we did get our answer, which is very helpful. Thank you. Is the Cosmos client is using JSON.net. So
no, Newtonsoft JSON.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but I think that is JSON.net, right? It's the package for it is Newtonsoft.json. But yes, that's the one that's, was around forever and ever, the gold standard in JSON processing for .NET from framework. So in any case, let's run this. This one is like, I don't know, what did we get out of this, right? And I'm not sure that it ended up being a huge thing, and I'm not even 100% sure if it was totally necessary, but I will say that if we go to meetings, this still works. Like, it didn't blow up at all. Right. Even though I think if we go to Data Explorer, what's interesting is I think our meetings are still cased like this way, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's how they were written, right? We haven't done anything to change that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not trying to claim anything went wrong there. I wonder, I like that it seems compatible, which is good.
What happens if you write a new record? I'm kind of curious.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So let's go. We'll write a new record this way, and then we got 20 minutes. We'll see if we can maybe sneak in a form to add a new record. It's not going to be our final implementation, but it could be. It could be interesting. What's coming in Windows?
Yeah. While Chris is doing that, welcome, Alan. We're just kind of getting kind of redoing the data layer here and looking at our Cosmos client and see about taking some of the options and properties inside of there and see if we can do some interesting something interesting with how that data gets stored.
So I put in a meeting title. It's a test meeting. I would hate for somebody to think that, oh my gosh, what do you know about the next window? I don't know anything. So, all right. Okay, I think I did something wrong there. What did I do? Yeah. Let's run that again.
That's an easy one. Okay.
Yep. And sent the request. Okay. And you can see that it's returning us this. So now let's take a look at the list of meetings. Taking a look at the list of meetings, it's getting deserialized camel case. We haven't looked in the emulator yet. But we can do that. We have that technology. And let's see. Let's look at item 2. Item 2 is camel cased. Item 1 is not, but it seems to all play together nicely because I think we're getting help from that serialization. I hope. I suppose one way to find out is to take it out and see what happens. But that wasn't the order of operations that I added it. First, I added, there's something we didn't cover at all today, now that I think about it.
What's that?
We didn't cover at all how we dealt. Did we ever end up talking about how we got over the service discovery? Did we do that Friday?
We did that Friday because we wound up hard coding it.
That's right.
It's in the app settings.
Yeah.
And it's because just, we're using WASM, so we don't get service discovery right now down to the WebAssembly. We manually entered the URL to the API as an app setting.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. And that's known. And we talked about, okay. So sorry, I'd forgotten that we had talked about that. Is the Blazor WebAssembly standalone app can't participate in service discovery or doesn't participate in service discovery. We went over the GitHub issue, the reasons why, stuff like that. I'm not sure if I included that in the show notes. I'll have to go double check. Okay, so here we are. So now what I thought would be kind of interesting, what I kind of wanted to see as I was working on this next, is I said, this is nice that I can add meetings here, but boy, wouldn't it be great if I could add one, if I could add one in the app.
Right.
So here's where it gets interesting. The question is where? And I did a couple things here. Another thing I did is one thing I played around with. I don't know if you want to look at it. Is I played around with changing this service to be a typed HTTP client.
Okay.
It's not that you couldn't use this as a typed HTTP client. In fact, it's really close to being usable as one because the extension method injects an HTTP client for you. So it's the right kind of service, but I was kicking around whether formalize it a little bit more with a interface. And even more, what I'm thinking is, do I want to get to a point where I could now write a console app that could use all these services to, at the command line, interact with our backend, not for the purposes of actual use, but sometimes I like having those little CLIs as I know there's such things as integration tests. I know there's such things, but it's almost like a proof that your abstractions are good, because in order to do the thing, you don't have to run the web app. You can also do it this other way. So I don't know if we want to try to do that in the last 15 minutes.
It seems like a reasonable amount of work for that amount of time.
Yeah.
And probably gets us in a better state.
Yeah. So admittedly, when I did it, I left this code here so that I could basically switch back if I broke it. Yeah. And that's probably the easier thing to do. And we can talk long term about where this belongs. Does it belong in the web app, or does it belong in some kind of support project that then maybe could be picked up by another app, right? For some reason, I lost what I was trying to say there. So let's create another service here, or in our services folder. And it's just going to be a class. And because we're creating our own HTTP client, I'm going to call it meetings HTTP client. And what are some of the things we can do here is, let's leave it like that for now. It's going to bring in an HTTP client and then just hang on to it. And then we need a constructor, which I think it's going to pretty much be pretty good. I'd like to come back and address this later. I'm curious what we would want to do here. Actually, that was kind of what I wanted to say, but not exactly. I fat fingered that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you there. I'd like to come back and think about if somebody goofs up this dependency injection, what can we do better?
Right.
Oh boy, what have you done here? Let's see. Is this what I was about to type? Get meetings async is yes, the method that I was going to create. Creates a new list of meetings, and then you know what? I think it's pretty darn close. It's pretty close. It's amazing. Now, I need to bring in, a using for read from JSON async. I need to bring in a using directive for core, and this is pretty much workable. There's issues here that we could work through. I will tell you a conversation I'd like to have in another episode is about the return type being a list. That's fine in success cases. There's more to do with this success too. For example, in empty, if we have no meetings, I think if we have no meetings, we're going to have some trouble. We'd want to return an empty list, which is, it's not an error case.
Right.
But if it's exceptional, we're going to want to talk about how to deal with that, because I actually would like to consider not throwing an exception. Here you can see that what we're doing is we're swallowing the exception and returning an empty list. Probably not the ideal outcome, but considering we just have a few minutes, let's see if that gets us kind of close here.
Yeah,
I'm curious. I want to take a look at the CS proj real quick.
Okay.
Because I'm wondering, did we get something added for us? No, we didn't. Okay. All right. No problem. So, okay, we have this client. Now, one of the things we need, I think, is we need, I would like to have an interface for this. So I'm going to go ahead and extract an interface. And I think we'll call it iMeetings service. My thinking here is that this does not always have to be an HTTP client. It could be talking to a different type of database. It could be talking to an iMeetings service. It gives you the ability to get meetings, but we don't know that it's Cosmos. We don't know that it has to go to the web to do so.
It could be my calendar.
Yeah, it could be anything, right? It could be, like you said, that could be a different web service, or it could just be a JSON file on your machine, or it could be a SQL server or something like that. So we did end up with this. Okay, now,
cool.
Let's see, what else do we need to do? The next thing to do, we need to start using this. So let's go up to the web app. And here, instead of this scoped service, let's try commenting this out for now. And instead, let's use, this is using typed HTTP clients, which is not going, we're not going to get the extension method for out of the box.
Right.
So,
because you're in Blazor WebAssembly and that doesn't exist over there.
So I'm actually not 100% sure if it's if we go and rebuild this with Blazor server, I'm not 100% sure if that's it. or if what we're looking for is this right here. It went away. I as I was typing, it appeared. But what I want is Microsoft.extensions.http, which implements the HTTP client factory pattern for ASP.NET. So let's take that. And I'm putting this in the web app.
Right.
This now just lit up. So that's really all that took. And let's see. What are the things that we say here? Well, one of the things we do is we tell it what interface are we. What's the interface that basically we're targeting for injection, really? That's the way I think of it, right? And then what is the implementation? And the implementation is the meetings HTTP client. It has that right. Let's see what else it wants to do here. It pretty much got it. It pretty much got it, except, yeah, it pretty much did what we wanted.
Do we need that caret at the end of the...
Let me think.
The HTTP client?
I think what we really need is for me not to have put, see, this is a generic method.
There we go.
What we needed is for me to not get that wrong. Like this. Okay. So what does that HTTP client do? Well, let's see. It says it adds the HTTP client factory and related services, a service collection, configures a binding, and so on.
Okay.
The meetings endpoint's coming from
saying
here.
Find an iMeeting service to do that. And then in this case, specifically, this iMeeting service of the HTTP client. Meetings HTTP client. Okay.
However, one of the things that I think is happening is I'm not 100% sure this meetings endpoint is. Let's run this again real quick. If I remember correctly, I don't think this meetings endpoint is actually pulling anything out.
Empty.
Right.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting that breakpoint to hit. There it is. So meetings endpoint is null.
So that's null. Right.
And
good.
But look at this.
It's right. And I think it's there, which is fine. It's in the file. But we also don't have the Microsoft Extensions configuration there as well. Which
go
ahead.
I did some digging around. And I think the issue is that you have to ship this app settings JSON in the www root. Because remember that Blazor WebAssembly is running here. Yeah. So Blazor WebAssembly, in fact, if I didn't kill the app, I wonder if we'd see an error in the WebAssembly saying that I can't find the app settings file.
You might, although I think I tried to get that. If you look at the projects file, I think I tried to say that needs to live in that space.
Oh, that's right. You persisted it, didn't you?
I tried to, but I don't think I did it to the right spot. But I think where
no, it didn't. It's not blowing up here. Okay, so I'll tell you kind of what I did is I let it go.
The comments.
Oh, I haven't been paying attention to all the comments, so.
That's okay. There's a great conversation going on. Hopefully we'll have a few minutes to kind of get through. But I think Alan brings up a great point. This is wondering because service discovery doesn't make sense running on a client machine, right? And we kind of knew that from the conversation last week. So good point. But then related to that is nor does adding an app setting file. And I think I agree with that as well. Yep. And I think what we were trying to do is we had to get this running. Yep. So we were going down the normal paths of how we did it. So that's why those pieces are there. I agree that we kind of, and this is where some of the rest of the conversation got to is, hey, it really should be an API off of the origin or some kind of an endpoint off of the origin. Just call back to that, and then that knows how to call to the other pieces.
Right. And where we want to go, because we've talked about this, is where we want to go is implement YARP so that we basically funnel the calls back through the origin out to the target API. That's where we'd like to go. And this is great because I love that maybe that validates a lot of what we kind of want to do. And it would be really nice to get a lot of these into issues so that it's really clear that that's where we want to go, or at least what we want to try. Sometimes in the hour format, it's like so fragmented, where it's like, what are they doing? And some of it as
it's
well.
Kind of hard to have that conversation and go and take it where it needs to go, and then have a time point at the end we got to stick to.
Yeah, because part of it is an idea of we kind of want to see something work today. Yeah. So, but I agree about that, because we have been having the conversation here about just simply using like maybe reverse proxying back to same origin, and then having that know about the API so that way the app doesn't have to, right? I agree with Alan's comment that an app setting file in Blazor WebAssembly doesn't make a lot of sense. Part of it was just to wonder what were the options, and there's plenty of options. For one thing, the WebAssembly app could go to a well-known configuration endpoint, even if that was important. If perhaps other configuration is important. But in this particular case, coming back to your API, we've talked about a backend for front end possibility. We've talked about this YARP possibility where we basically come back to a YARP, and we'd love to implement all that. So maybe you'll see a show title come up where we say adding YARP support. So let's see if this switch, I think I might have to do something else though. Do I have to do something else? Let me go back to the meetings Razor page. And if this doesn't work, just like Martha Stewart, I have something we can swap out. The meeting service isn't going to, no, I think what I need to do, I think the last thing I need to do is switch this, because remember the dependency injection is now an interface. So let's switch this, but that's actually it, because the name of the method is the same. So I think we're okay. We're going to find out. So part of this discussion was to introduce typed clients, which I think are kind of neat. Typed HttpClients have their place. It's weird. Well, I don't want to say the word weird, because it's not that it's weird. I think it's kind of like when you decide to do that, it's sort of encouraging you to create your own sort of domain specific service, but yet in the context of being handed an HTTP client. You did this yourself. This is what you implemented. Yeah. It's just that the only thing I did that really may not seem all that special is I switched to using this extension method support for it. That's it. It's not special. Well, let's see. Let's see if I broke it. Nope. Still works. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And I think what you put in there is what, if we were doing this as a Blazor server app, we would have done the same thing with the HTTP client. It's just, you have to know, because we initially went down the path of builder.services.httpClient. It's not there, knowing where that comes from and that it makes sense to add it or not.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in, I'm going to create a little branch. Oh, first I got to spell Git correctly.
There you go.
I'm going to create a little branch. We're going to do, I don't think it said I want to do this. Isn't it -A? Isn't that what it is? You know what? I'm going to do what I'm not supposed to do. I forget what it is. I don't know why I'm having trouble forgetting that. And then we're going to say post show. This is just for me to hang on to.
Okay.
All right. So that's the work that we've done, as far as I can tell. Oh, created a couple things. Okay, fine. Now, what I want to do is, if I say get branch -r, is that what it is? Yes. So that's showing me the remote branches, and we have this branch here. It would be a miracle if this branch just worked. That would be great. And if it does, then some slight changes. You can see I went a different direction where I basically said, let's pull it from configuration. And if that fails, use this. No, not the production ready code we're going to go for. We'll get this solved. This is definitely very developer making it work. but the HTTP client is now getting filled with the meetings endpoint. That's fine. But there's something else in this particular version of the app, and it is in the meetings page. There's a lot more code than you may remember. There is a form now that has everything you need to create a new meeting and a button to save it, and then a little bit of code when you save it to go ahead and add the meeting. So what is this meeting service add meetings async? Right. Again, we just kind of ran out of time here. I started expanding the typed HTTP client to say, okay, well, now here's how you add a meeting. If you give me a meeting, I'll call the API and I'll add a meeting.
Yeah.
The nice thing here is that all of this, no changes to the API, haven't touched it at all. So that kind of tells me like, okay, maybe on the right track. Like certainly we'll probably want to clean up our API at some point. There's a lot we'll want to do. We're going to want to add open API support. There's a lot of things we're going to want to do. But here are all of our current meetings. And if I say add new meeting, I can say the TheDevTalkShow live, right? Come see Rich and Chris record one of these shows live with an audience. All right, good enough. As you can see, just so I tend to like even put in pretend data. And I get a little bit of calendar support here. Cool. So let's say the meetings here. I don't, as you can see, I don't have, look at that little bug there. I don't have the ability to put in a time, so that blew up. Let's say I don't put in a title at all. We'll go look at why that worked. Forms validation. And if I save it, then maybe I do have to refresh it. It might not be that clever yet. Oh, did it not work? That would have been a bummer. I thought we were in a good spot. Meeting added successfully. Oh no, here it is. Maybe
that's the recent one.
Maybe that's the one I just added.
Yeah.
With the funny description. It could be that I have some funny stuff going on with form validation that it didn't really validate. So like there's a lot of interesting code changes in here that we'll have to take a look at. I didn't obviously commit them. I started adding type annotations, data annotations to the meeting object. Okay. We can do little things like a custom validation to make sure that somebody doesn't try to have the meeting start after the beginning. And this all gets pushed back up to Blazor.
That's cool.
So when we go to the meetings Razor, we'll see things like validation message 4, and so on.
Very cool. Okay.
We didn't get to go through that stuff. Maybe we'll go through it a little bit closer, a little bit more next time. But there is, for people who are interested, there's a branch out there that's experimental right now. We'll see what we do about adding it to the app. But here we are.
That's cool. Excellent. A good wrap on the show. And you check this all back in. So it's already up there anyway. So
that branch is out at GitHub.
Yep.
It was just me messing around with some features. So
nice.
As Alan says here, the typed client is using HTTP client factory. I just felt like it's kind of nice. It seems to manage that all for you, especially not having a singleton HTTP client, but preventing the newing up of an HTTP client and heading towards the port exhaustion problem and all kinds of things that happen there. So,
yep, absolutely, cool.
I picked the wrong one.
It's okay. Let's try that one. That's interesting. When you add it, it gets rid of or.
Yeah, the scenes support is really weird in.
It is also preview.
That's true. It is beta or whatever they're calling it. So.
Yeah. Hang on, I finally found it. No, not that one. That one. There you go. You'd already done it. This is what happens when you have two producers trying to fix things on the fly. Cool. Well, I appreciate I appreciate that, Chris. I'm gonna get rid of that. And so we've got some more stuff to continue to work on. Lots of great comments and thoughts in the chat there.
Yeah,
thanks,
absolutely.
Thanks, Mitch and Alan, for having a great discussion around some of the things when it comes to Blazor WebAssembly and, how we should be referencing those backend APIs and some of the things that we definitely want to look at as we move forward through this. So we definitely went through a lot there. Love to hear your comments and your thoughts. If you are watching in the future, feel free to add them to the comments here on YouTube, or feel free to go check out any of the previous archives for this, because we've been working on this project for, it's probably our 7th or 8th show working on our Meetings app application. So thanks everyone for watching. Let us know your questions and comments. Let us know, is this something you're interested in seeing us, what are your thoughts about the project in general? Just kind of get your thoughts of, hey, is this interesting to you all out there? I know we've got a bunch of viewers watching, and really appreciate you checking things out. So, so with that, I know we're going to come back and do a show probably later in the week. We can't do the Wednesday one, but probably Friday we'll be back online and do continue building out our application here. So with that, for Chris, my name is Rich, and we will see you next time on the Dev Talk Show.